I am Sarah Lodge. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, and I specialize in the mind-gut connection. So today, obviously, we're going to explore that connection more in depth. I generally like to have guests participate, but today I thought we would get into some pretty deep educational stuff. And of course, there will be time for questions. I'm always happy if people put questions in the chat, and then we'll take a break for questions at the end and sort of halfway in between. So this is sort of the agenda that we're looking at for today. Opening remarks, which we did, and my technical difficulties. We'll do serotonin, dopamine, and gut microbiome, the gut-brain axis, building a healthy gut microbiome, and then some question and answer at the end. So some of you may not even know what a holistic nutritionist is. So to start off, I thought we would sort of break down that, because a lot of people question what is a dietitian versus a nutritionist, and what is a holistic nutritionist versus a regular nutritionist. So here's a little video that explains that in a little bit more depth for you. Oh boy. Play. It's such a great day for this. Oh my gosh. Okay, so basically, I'll just explain to you with the lovely video that I have here. So holistic nutritionist looks at the person as a whole. So we work definitely close with a naturopathic doctor. So in a holistic nutritionist scope of practice, we cannot diagnose, but we can treat the condition, and we look at the person as a whole, like I said. And where I differentiate, I look at what's going on in your life, in your mind, and your relationship with food. So when we put protocols together, we look at you as an individual, because me versus you versus Susie down the road, we all have different bodies, we all have different needs and views and relationships with food. So looking at it more individualized, we take a lot of time with you to dig deep. So we're not, you're going to the doctor's office telling them your symptoms, and then they have one foot at the door. We sit together for a lengthy amount of time to investigate what truly is going on. And then everything is 100% customized to you. So that's where we differentiate from a dietitian. A dietitian is more diagnostic, and they will prescribe, right? So they may tell you, okay, you have a heart issue, eat this heart-related diet, which is put together by the government. So it's not very customized. It's more of a general protocol. So that's where we differ very much. So definitely you can ask more questions about that. And you're probably wondering, what is the significance of the mind-gut connection? So it basically refers to the biodirectional communication or relationship interaction between the brain and the gut. So the gut connection is primarily facilitated by the gut-brain connection, which consists of a complex network of nerves and hormones, chemicals that allow for constant communication between the mind and the gut. So the significance of this is the overall well-being cannot be overstated. It is something that is coming out more and more, and is becoming sort of a light bulb to people. It definitely has a profound impact on your physical and mental health. So here's some key points to understand. So mental health, we know, is a big topic. There's a growing body of research suggesting that the health of the gut and the brain are intimately linked. So I know they say in their research suggesting, but it's definitely there. So many neurotransmitters that regulate mood, such as serotonin and dopamine, play a crucial role that we will be diving into. So an imbalance of these two neurotransmitters can contribute to mental health conditions, such as anxiety, depression, and even addiction. And so next key point is our emotional well-being, or your emotional well-being. So the gut is often referred to as the second brain. You might be familiar with this term, but that biodirectional connection, it is the second brain. These two talk to each other all the time. It houses millions of nerve cells that communicate with each other. So the nerve cells in the gut communicate with the nerve cells and the neurotransmitters in the brain. The gut-brain axis, which we will talk about, allows for the transmission of signals from the gut to the brain. So it's like that direct connection, which influences your emotions, your stress response, and your overall well-being. So the biodirectional communication means the emotional state of your gut and the emotional state of your brain, they talk to each other and it affects one another. So of course, what would a wellness webinar be without physical health? We all know we're told to exercise, but here we're not talking about that. We're just talking about how it relates to the gut and the brain, and movement is important, and we know this. So the gut is responsible, of course, for the digestion and absorption of your nutrients, as well as elimination, waste from your body. So a healthy gut microbiome, which is basically a collection of bacteria, of other microorganisms in the gut, play a crucial role in maintaining your gut and overall physical health. So again, all circle related, right? And then inflammation. So likely, you know, someone suffering from one of these conditions, or has had one of these conditions, or you're suffering from chronic inflammation yourself. So it's inflammation is basically the result, an underlying factor of many diseases. So both physical and mental diseases. The gut microbiome and the gut-brain axis play a crucial role in how the immune system regulates inflammation in your body. So let's go to the next one, which I'm feeling that everybody could relate with at some point in time, our stress response. Now, often we don't really connect our stress response to what's actually happening in our body. Some of us, we really hold our emotions in, and then we don't realize till years down the road what the damage it has done to the body. And a lot of us live in what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, sorry, where we're in our fight or flight all the time, right? So we're just go, 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 and we're just kind of holding our emotions in. And we often don't take time to bring ourselves back into that parasympathetic, which is your rest, your digest, your calm, cool, and collected. So just think about that for a moment. Like, what are you doing to bring yourself out of that stress response, and connecting it to what it is actually doing to your body? So chronic stress can lead to, of course, changes in your gut health and your gut microbiome, balance of bacteria in your gut, and affect the production of the neurotransmitters that we talked about, serotonin and dopamine. So we're going to dive a little bit more into those. So if you're not familiar with what dopamine is, it's a type of neurotransmitter, but also a hormone. So it plays a role in movement, memory, pleasure, reward, and motivation, to just be basic about it. And then we have its close buddy, serotonin. So we've likely heard of serotonin when it comes to sleep, but it does play several other roles. So we have influencing learning, your memory, happiness, regulating body temperature, regulating your nausea response, so like feeling nauseous, your sleep, of course, sexual behavior, and even hunger. So lack of serotonin, of course, is thought to play a role in depression, anxiety, mania, again, with addictions and other mental health conditions. So pretty important role serotonin and dopamine have in your body, right? So here's a little just a sort of little pathway of how the dopamine and serotonin work in your body. So we have our dopamine pathways again: reward, motivation, pleasure, motor function, compulsion, and preservation. So very important roles in the body. And then serotonin, our mood, our memory processing, and sleep. So dopamine is made through a two-step process in the brain. So the first step is it changes the amino acid tyrosine into what's called dopa, and then converted into dopamine. So when this happens, this can affect our heart rate as well, kidney function, which is huge. And with dopamine and serotonin working together, being the two main neurotransmitters, you want to make sure that these are very well taken care of, well looked after. So I have a very surprising fact that I'm going to share with you that I think you might be shocked of. So as you can see, a higher low level of dopamine or serotonin is directly related with neurological diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and dementia. I actually did a webinar for Parkinson's Society of Southwestern Ontario on the connection of gut health and brain health. And they've now linked Parkinson's to poor gut health and poor dopamine and serotonin levels. So pretty huge. Some people are predispositioned to Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, but by taking care of your gut health and realizing all this information and your mind and gut health, then you can prevent the onset of symptoms of Parkinson's. So very huge research out there, and it's starting to blow up for sure. So what is the connection really from serotonin, dopamine, and your gut, right? So we're going to touch on the gut microbiome. Basically, that's a healthy bacteria. You can go into what gut microbiome is scientifically, and basically that's trillions of microorganisms and their genetic material that live and are housed in your gut and your intestinal tract. So these microorganisms are hugely responsible and involved in the functions of your body and your overall well-being. So here's the fun fact. Look at this. 50% of dopamine is produced in your gut. So 50%. We know it's a neurotransmitter, but 50% of that is produced and housed in your gut. So how important now do you think the gut microbiome is in protecting that? Very important. So, and then the fun fact, I don't have it on here, but I'm going to tell you, is that 90 to 95% of serotonin is produced and housed in your gut. So those two neurotransmitters, if they're housed in your gut mainly, how do you think that's affecting your brain if you're putting poor food in there, you're high stress, you're not dealing with your stress response, and you're living in fight or flight? How do you think your brain's going to be? Most likely anxious, most likely depressed, most likely foggy, right? So because these two talk, and now that you know those neurotransmitters are actually living in your gut, you can see the importance of why the mind-gut connection is really making headway in the world right now. So that being said, we talked about the biodirectional connection, which in scientific terms is called the gut-brain axis. So we're going to dive into that. But right now I am just going to take a little break for questions if anybody has them. You can pop them in the chat. I'm pretty sure I disabled it or enabled it, sorry. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Do I have a clinic? Yes, I do. Well, I actually work from home, but I do work at a women's dedicated healthcare center. And so I will see clients out of there for sure. A lot of people still wanted to do online. So, I do a bit of both. I prefer my in-person appointments, but I will leave some contact information at the end if you are interested. Oh, look, I've got that in the screen. Right, so I will continue on because I'm sure some questions will pop up as we continue to give you more information on this topic. So let's move on to the gut-brain axis. So now here's how I like to think of it. I mean, getting outside of the sciencey type of terms, like when you see an accident, so you're visually seeing it, but immediately you feel it in your gut. You're like, oh, that's awful. Or you have to go on stage and you immediately get butterflies. That is the vagus nerve and the gut brain axis communicating. So the gut brain axis communicating via the vagus nerve, which we're going to jump into a little bit more. So you can kind of get an idea of just how quick that is, right? It's instantaneous. Like you see an accident, you're immediately putting the stress into your gut. So that's basically your second brain. Those two are talking to each other. And basically the gut brain axis, again, is just a term for the communication between the gut and your brain. And these two organs are both connected physically and biochemically in many different ways. But the main one we're going to talk about is the vagus nerve. So we'll just kind of give you a little idea of what that looks like. So here we have our brain. And here we have our gut and our microbiota. So we talked about that. That's our gut microbiome. And this is how these two are talking to each other. Our body is connected through our circulation, and many different organs are, around on either side of these. And the vagus nerve does travel through them, but not when it comes to the gut. These two are that instantaneous connection, right? So it still moves around the other organs, but you get that direct connection through the vagus nerve. And it is the biggest nerve connecting your gut and your brain. And again, doing that biodirectional response. So when your gut is sick, your brain's like, oh no, what's wrong? And you immediately start to worry. And then the worry causes your stomach to feel sick, right? It's just that you have to find a balance between both of them, right? Which again is easier said than done, but so now we're going to talk about the process of a digestion, right? So there is the gut, we have this connection, but if your digestion's not working so well, then neither your gut microbiome or your gut microbiota is not going to be optimal. And if it's not optimal, what happens? Our dopamine and our serotonin levels are compromised. Then what happens? We lose sleep, we have memory function, we have high stress, we have anxiety and depression. So you see where it all starts, right? So let's dive into digestion. So there's our beautiful digestive system. But so most of us think that our digestion starts with when we put our food in our mouth. But actually, our digestion starts when we see the food. So if we see a nice plate of food, our mouth starts to salivate, and that's when digestive enzymes are being produced. So even before you put it in your mouth, the digestive system is starting to work. And then it goes through your mouth, obviously, your esophagus, your stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and then in the golden loo. So it's kind of a fun fact. So when you think about, and when I dive in with my clients, is the relationship people have with food. If your parents or your partner, and a lot of times the relationship with food stems from our past, like if your presentation of your food was awful, then you have a relationship, the way your stomach feels when you look at food or certain foods, right? You're definitely turned off of it. So like when you get older, you definitely don't eat those mushy peas that you were forced to eat because visually it didn't do anything for you, and visually it makes you feel sick to have to try to eat that, right? And so there's a correlation with different kinds of food. Or if you're parents made you sit at the table to eat the vegetables until the lights went out. You know, there is a relationship that has been built that we take into our adulthood with food. And that affects our digestive system, because sometimes we were made to eat really fast. Sometimes we were made to eat even if we weren't hungry. You know, so you have to look at those relationships, and that actually affects your digestion as well, as neurologically. So those are a couple of things to kind of take into consideration. So just a little more of a visual of kind of how that works. But again, it all starts with the eyes, then we salivate, and that's where our digestive enzymes are produced, which they are the ones that help break down your fats, your carbohydrates, your glucose, your sugar in your foods. So yes, you want to make sure your food is also visually appealing. And then just the reason why I'm touching on this is that just letting you know, it takes about 36 hours to move food through the colon. And the reason why that is important is because a lot of times people don't give themselves time to let that go through before they're putting in more food and more food and more food because of it, either a stress response, anxiety, or depression. So you don't want to overload it and then have your digestive system sit sluggish, which a lot of people do. And in essence, like, they don't eat for 6-hour periods. And then they gorge, and then they don't eat for another 6 hours, and then they gorge before they go to bed. So that being said, you're not going to build a healthy gut microbiome that way, because your body is going to store fat, and your bowels are going to become lazy, and your gut microbiota is going to become compromised. So again, this most important thing is the gut microbiota, or the gut microbiome, sorry, is what is the utmost important. So it's all a process, and this kind of is where it starts. So I wonder if anybody knows, and if you want to put this in the chat, how many times optimally should you chew your food before you swallow? So I'll answer that. So the question again is, how many times do you believe you have to chew before swallowing to effectively digest your food? So you can put the answers in the chat, and I'll answer it at the end. All right, so just to sort of recap here, this is basically how the whole process works. The gut-brain axis refers to the physical and chemical connection between the gut and the brain, or the biodirectional relationship, via the vagus nerve. So we know that's the biggest nerve in the body. Also, these two are regulating circulation. And we know that there are millions of nerves and neurons in between these two, but again, we are focusing on the vagus nerve because there is exercises that we can use to stimulate it, to calm it down. So while these two are communicating, we want to make sure the vagus nerve is calm, and then it's going to deliver the message to either the gut where it needs it, or the brain where it needs it. So it's about finding balance, right? And so by altering the type of bacteria that we put into our gut, it is possible to improve our brain health. So let's get to the good stuff here. How do we build a healthy gut microbiome, which I know everybody's just excited about? So again, as a registered holistic nutritionist, we look at people as an individual. And one of the main reasons why is because we all have a unique network of bacteria in our guts, right? So this is originally determined by our DNA. So this is a fun fact. So a person is first exposed to bacteria or microorganisms, gut microbiorganisms, through the birth canal and through the breast milk of your mother. So if you had a compromised birth, you're going to have compromised gut microbiota right from the beginning. And so the species of bacteria that grow in your body are actually determined by your mother. So again, if your mother had an unhealthy gut, stress, compromised gut microbiota, you are going to have that immediately when you're born. The good news is, though, you can, so just think of it too. If you weren't breastfed, and you were already compromised and you weren't fed very healthy, and so now you're going into late adulthood with a lifestyle like that, how do you think your gut microbiota is going to be? How is your mental health? Like, just sit down and connect the dots. But see, we're at our most optimal, in between our youth and into old age, and then naturally our gut microbiome starts to decline on its own. So it's very important that we do lifestyle changes. Like I said, the key points of building a healthy gut microbiome, like our physical health, our stress response, our mental health, all of that. So if we're taking care of that, we can reduce that decline when we're older. So when we get cognitive decline, that's when our neurological conditions come into play. Some of us are predispositioned to those, like, again, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia. So if you are, you would want to avoid that at all costs. So let's start some ways, or talk about some ways that you can start repairing and taking care of your gut and brain health. So here is basically a breakdown. So in my industry, scientists, naturopaths, nutritionists put together what is called the Mind Diet. Very clever name, if I do say so myself. So the Mind Diet basically it can boost your ability to cope with neurological conditions, but it also helps to build your healthy gut microbiome. So basically eating plenty of foods, whole foods, as natural as you can. And I know you've probably heard it again and again, the importance of your fruits and your vegetables, lean proteins, beans, legumes, whole grains, a well-balanced diet, right? And meat is definitely included in there because it's one of the ones that contains the most bioavailable form of protein, and that's just the most absorbable form of protein. So you can do natural supplements. Supplementation, for myself as a holistic nutritionist, we look at food first. But supplementation is almost always necessary in a way of where we live. Vitamin D is becoming a very big deficiency in people. So it's often little things like that, just kind of filling in the gaps where the food can't reach. Or if you have been suffering for a long time, that we can get you to your desired results a lot faster. So, and then high fiber. So high fiber, of course, we know is important for grabbing toxins out of our body and flushing them. But a lot of people take in too much of one type of fiber and not the other. So they're taking in a lot of carbs, a lot of breads and crackers and whole wheats, oatmeals and stuff, but they're not getting enough of soluble fibers, which are going to be like your fruits, your vegetables, which contain a lot of water. So one of them is going to constipate you, and one of them is going to help flush water into the colon to exit your body and flush out those toxins as well. So sadly, that's where constipation comes in, because people just aren't balancing both. So let's dive in here what the Mind Diet stands for. It's basically a Mediterranean intervention for neurodegenerative delay, right? So that's the fancy term. In layman's terms, it's a Mediterranean type diet. So some fats, some proteins, a very nutrient rich diet. Still has carbs, still has your meat, but everything is balanced. So that's kind of what we're looking for. But this diet specifically, the Mediterranean type diet, has been specifically linked to boosting your brain health. So let's see what is in that diet exactly. So here's the purpose of these, basically, when it comes to the Mind Diet. Your green leafy vegetables, you want to aim for 6 or more of those per day. I know you've heard this before. So this can be like kale, cooked spinach. It can be greens in your salad, beans, green beans, anything that's green, basically. And then all your other vegetables, of course, you want to try to eat in addition to the green vegetables at least once a day. So like carrots or radishes or anything that you like to eat for vegetables. There's no real limit on that, unless of course you have a specific digestion issue, then we would talk about that. Specific ones you should have and shouldn't. Of course, our berries, they provide, these berries here specifically provide antioxidant values, which are going to help boost your immune system. We have our nuts, which are high in protein, but also in our healthy fats. So healthy fats being your omega-3 fatty acids. Those omega-3 fatty acids promote brain function, number one. Heart health, they lower bad cholesterol, they help with your skin, giving that a glow. It helps to lubricate your joints. So it is an all-over supplement that we as a society lack and we need to supplement with. Even if you're eating fish several times a week, you have to watch with the fish because of the high mercury levels as well. So taking it in supplement form is going to be a little bit more beneficial for you, as well as eating, the fish and other foods that have omega-3s. So again, nuts are all well-rounded good snack because of the oils, of the omega-3s, as well as the high protein and fiber. So excellent. The olive oil or avocado oil, again, is for that omega-3 healthy fatty acids. We have our whole grains. You want to aim for at least 3 servings of this per day. But you want to choose, once again, like quinoas, brown rice, whole wheat pasta, whole wheat bread. Oatmeal is good too, right? We have our fish, again, for the omega-3 fatty acids, as well as protein. So salmon, sardines, trout, tuna, those are all some really good options for you. Beans, we want to include those at least 3 or 4 times a week. And they can be any type of beans, even like as simple as, and now they're not the best unless you can cook your own, but beans in tomato sauce in a can, really easy. So people that, stress that they don't have a lot of time for eating healthy, well, you can just eat some beans in tomato sauce and you're getting some good benefits out of their proteins. Iron, minerals, right, are in a lot of beans. And then of course, poultry for our protein sources. You can do chicken and you can do turkey as well, because these are some of our leaner proteins. And again, there's nothing wrong with eating a steak or red meat, depending on your digestive system. These are just a little bit more friendly and really nutrient dense. And nutrient dense means like they have the most pack or bang for your buck. Let's put it that way. Okay, so let's dive into now fiber. And why is fiber important? Well, we know this if you go to your doctor, they're going to tell you, you need more fiber. If you're constipated or have diarrhea, they'll be like, you need more fiber. And then they'll prescribe you Metamucil, which is a nightmare for us because Metamucil has so much sugars and other fillers in it that it's just not beneficial. You're better to eat your food source or find one that has a balance of soluble and insoluble fiber, which we'll dive into next, without all the sugar in it, right? So you don't need all that extra stuff. And so basically, dietary fiber is somewhat of a magic ingredient for keeping people regular. That's kind of how we look at it. But it also helps to reduce cholesterol, helps regulate blood sugar levels. So really good breakfast is just some plain oatmeal in the morning, and then just sprinkle it with some cinnamon. So what that does is that stabilizes your blood glucose levels for a good long time, for like 2 to 3 hours. You're full because of the oatmeal. You have a good portion of fiber, and cinnamon helps to regulate the blood glucose as well as the fiber in the oatmeal. So preventing those sugar spikes from, like, if you have a bowl of, I don't know, like Cheerios, have a lot Honey Nut Cheerios, or even though they say they're heart healthy, like Fruit Loops or something, you're going to get an insulin spike and then you're going to crash. So if you do something like natural oatmeal with cinnamon, you're going to stabilize that blood sugar and you're going to feel better for longer periods of time. So here's a couple of keynotes to understand about fiber that a lot of us don't know, which I did kind of just explain a little bit of that. But so here's our differences. Soluble fiber dissolves in water and other bodily fluids, and it forms a gel-like material. So it basically helps to, it's called like a gut mucosa. So it helps to slide food through the intestines. So say if you're not getting enough of that, what do you think is going to happen? Constipation, right? So insoluble fiber doesn't dissolve fluids. So instead it absorbs them. So that's what bulks up your stool. So again, if you're not having a balance, you can see where you're going to be, if you're taking in too much soluble fiber, you're going to have diarrhea. If you're taking in too much insoluble fiber without the soluble, you're going to have constipation, and that's the way it is. So you need a balance of both. And if you're not getting it through your diet, or you're just relying on like anti-constipation medications, you're not going to teach your body how to produce this sort of gel-like substance, and it can dissolve over time. The mucosa in the intestines can dissolve over time, so you need to be fueling it. And then, of course, while you're taking in this much fiber, you need to make sure you're hydrating. So yes, there is this, we've heard forever, drink your 8 glasses of water per day. And it seems very stressful, right? To be like, how many glasses did I get? If you are eating a well-rounded diet, this is the fun part, fruits and vegetables are about 70% water, and they do count towards your daily intake of water. So yes, you want to have a good 6 glasses of water perhaps a day, and eating your fruits and vegetables, and you're going to be really close to what your body needs for the day. And it's moving through the organs and the digestive process that we went over before properly, right? So everything flowing through, and all of these foods, fibrous foods, foods in the Mind diet, are promoting and building a healthy gut microbiome. Important to know. Oh, and here you will see some of the facts. Oops, just change it there. So adults under 50 years old, males need about 38 grams of fiber, females 25. And then if you're over 50, it goes down a little bit. Our needs are a little bit different, but you still want to, if you're active as an older person, you want to stay relatively close to the same amount of calories. But again, our body processes slow down a bit. So you're looking at 30 grams of fiber for males and about 21 for females. Not a huge difference in there. And now we're going to talk about supplements. So again, in addition to eating a well-rounded diet, having some physical exercise or movement like walking, the Mind diet, again, I'm telling you, would be your optimal type of diet. But again, nutrients and supplements. So here's some ones that can be very beneficial for brain and gut function. Okay, so coenzyme Q10 basically protects neurons, so like your neurotransmitters, from toxicity. So it helps reduce the loss of dopamine in the brain. So it's like a brain protector supplement, if you will. Curcumin, which is like an Indian-based spice, has huge antioxidant benefits and anti-inflammatory. This is what I recommend for anybody that's having severe bloating in their stomach, arthritis, what else? Basically any anti-inflammatory condition. If they have breakouts in their skin, a lot of acne, definitely that is a supplement that I recommend. But it helps to protect the blood-brain barrier. So if we're looking in terms of for your brain, that's kind of what it does, because it's a high antioxidant as well. So an overall amazing product, right? So vitamin C. So I think a lot of us are pretty good on taking vitamin C or eating a very vitamin C rich diet. I know always I hear as a nutritionist, one of the questions I get is, can you have too much vitamin C? I think I'm having too much vitamin C. You will know if you're having too much vitamin C because you will have excessive diarrhea. That will be the number one symptom of too much vitamin C. So like if you're drinking orange juice, eating oranges, having citrus all day long, you're probably ingesting a little bit too much. So and then there's our vitamin D. So that's of course our sunshine vitamin that we know about. But vitamin D also helps to absorb calcium into our bones. And it plays an overall role in our hormonal balance in our body. And obviously, what is one of the ones I want to do? Oh, because low levels of vitamin D are linked to neurological conditions and some physical disorders. Getting some extra vitamin D in our diet, especially because we are about to hit winter months. We are lacking vitamin D that way anyways. If you're predisposition to neurological decline, if you're aging, this is something that you just want to have in your diet as a staple, right? And then just moving on to the main one that we all hear about. And one of the most asked questions I get is, what is the best probiotic? So probiotics, basically, if you haven't heard of them, they're definitely kind of a buzzword, and they are definitely superheroes in the rebuilding your gut health world or your gut bacteria. So basically probiotics, there is very many strains of probiotics. And so when somebody asks me what is the best one, well, what's best for you is not going to be best for me or again Susie down the road, right? Because there's various strains. So based on your symptoms are going to be what probiotic is best for you. And of course, they take a role in helping to build up that healthy bacteria. So along with eating a healthy diet, taking some probiotics, the right strain. Buying one from the drugstore is often not going to be the best strain, and you want to watch out for fillers because you could just be putting a lot of garbage into your body. One thing about me is I am very straightforward like that. I do a lot of research into probiotics because they are, again, those little superheroes for building healthy gut microbiome. And helping to keep the intestines healthy and help keep your immune system boosted. One other fun fact with the neurotransmitters being produced and housed in the gut, that is 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So if we're not taking care of it and we don't have any healthy bacteria in there fighting out the toxins, how do you think your overall health and well-being is? You might have noticed, you might notice extra colds, you might notice skin breakouts, anything, fatigue if your immune system is compromised. So just something to think about in that mannerism. So if you're going to jump into the probiotic train, I suggest to reach out to a professional to make sure that you're getting the right strain for what you need symptom wise. So here's a couple of other benefits basically to probiotics: digestive health, your mood, immunity, of course, decrease antibiotic resistance, prevent hair and skin irritation. So people that suffer eczema often will benefit from, or any sort of like bumps on their skin or irritation, will benefit from a probiotic. And it helps to fight toxins and pathogens because they help to build what is called the mucosa, so that lining that protects toxins from leaking into your bloodstream in your intestines. So you want to have that as healthy as possible. You don't want that thin. When that mucosa lining becomes thin, then people get what's called leaky gut. And that is basically toxins leaking into your bloodstream. so you can understand at that point how important it is to really sharpen up your diet and take some supplements to help with that. So yeah, and we could do a whole webinar on probiotics because it gets really deep into neurological components called psychobiotics, but we won't jump into that today. That you can look forward to in another webinar. So I am finished for all my sciencey talk and my fun talk about the bowels. So I'm going to head back over and let's dive into some questions.